everybody. Welcome to the SyFy Sistas podcast, where we give you our point of view. We are proud members of the Trek Geeks Network, and we're here with a Trek Geeks Network guest today. Yeah, I can say that. I'm Tamia Harper, and I'm joined by my sister, Sabrina Wood.
Whoop, whoop.
And we are also joined today by our brother in Trek, a member of our Trek Geek family, Mr. Jamie Rogers from the Divine Treasury.
Yay, Jamie.
Yay. So good to be here. Love my sisters.
So good to have you here. Now, why, you say, is Jamie joining us on the SyFy Sister Show? Well, number one, we're family. So that's the first thing. I dare you to start singing.
We are family.
See, there we go.
I got all my Trek Geeks with me.
Hey,
there you go.
I was wondering if Jamie was going to hit. I got all my sisters with me. I was waiting for it, but I like that. I got all my Trek Geeks.
I'm a drummer, so I'm not. The vocals aren't really good, but I can provide the rhythm. I can provide the R&B
all right
rhythm.
Now. I knew you were the right man for this show.
That's right. And this show today is going to be all about collecting. We know a lot of people out there, like myself, are complete novices when it comes to collecting for franchises that we love, particularly Trek, but any franchise. And I know some people out there are super pros like Jamie. So he's here to walk us through the ones and twos on the collecting scheme and all sorts of other things. But leading us in this discussion today is going to be Sabrina, because this is kind of up her alley too. So Sabrina,
I like stuff. I love stuff.
She likes stuff. She likes stuff. Take it away, sis.
Thank you, Tamia. And Jamie, I'm so psyched. We've been trying to do this show for a little bit because I love listening to the Divine Treasury, because I want to be a collector, but being that C personality that I am, I'm an accountant during the day. I need to know, protocol, facts, rules, like how come, what am I doing? Where am I going to put it? So what we want to do today is do a collecting 101 kind of show for those of us that are totally excited about all this new Trek and don't know where to start with buying things. We're just buying things randomly. So I have a bunch of questions, and I think so does Tamia. But first of all, I just want to get...
Yes, I do.
I want to get a little bit of background about how you got started collecting and what's your favorite stuff that you really, really love about your Star Trek collection.
So obviously my collecting started when I was very, very young. I collected everything. And I'm going to start out by saying I'm what you call a completist. So a completist is, they drive themselves absolutely crazy if they don't have complete sets of things. And this applies to pretty much every aspect of my life. Like whether I'm getting movies or DVDs, like I will buy things, even if so for instance, I'll buy a movie that's in a set of other movies. I may never watch that movie ever, but I have to have it.
You're that guy.
I have to have things that are complete. And when it's not complete, it drives me absolutely crazy. It's weird too. Like I said, it takes on different dynamics. Like, my music side, I play drums. Like my drums all have to be the same brand. My cymbals all have to be the same brand. So like I'm very particular about how I do things. Condition's a big deal with certain things. It's not as much of a big deal with other things. Presentation's another big piece to it. So there's so many aspects of it, but it really started when I was very young. I started watching Star Trek. I think I was about 5 or 6. First thing I ever saw was the motion picture.
Wow. Okay. Motion picture.
Nice. Wow.
Yeah.
That was your intro to Trek.
That was my intro. So we had friends that were very close to my family, my brother and I. My brother was 3 years older than me, but they were huge Star Trek and Star Wars fans. Like they were original series. The father had seen the original series when it came out initially. And they were huge Star Trek fans. They were the type, and they were very OCD about collecting too. They, they used to collect the Franklin Mint stuff. So, my mother was always curious as to what to introduce to her kids, so they were always talking about Star Wars and Star Trek. And so the first Star Trek that we got, he said, start with the motion picture. So that was my first foray into Star Trek. And what captivated me so much about the motion picture was the opening sequence with the Klingons. And then that sequence where they're going around the ship, that 8-minute sequence.
Yeah.
So
that was so good. I mean, they were just, I was like, are we still looking at the ship?
Yeah. that whole sequence feels like it's like a half hour long, but I think it's like 8 minutes, I believe, if I remember correctly. But that really kind of like put me in the mode of, I want that ship.
Yes.
I need that. And, I loved those older movies even more than I like the newer movies, because like there's something about the real model. It looks so real, and it looks, it just, as a kid, it made me feel like when I watched Star Wars too, it was like, I can see myself in that world because it looks real, it looks dirty. It looks, so that was the first thing I ever saw was the motion picture. It started with the original series and the original series movies. I remember seeing, Wrath of Khan not too long after that. I remember seeing Search for Spock on TV, and I taped that off of TV. And I just remember I'd watch that over and over and over again. But my collecting really came from those friends of ours. Like when I would go over their house and I would see some of the things that they had, and some of the things that he would actually make himself. Like I said, he made his own tridimensional chess set, which was really cool. But I even noticed like when they would tape the shows off of TV, he would be really detailed, and he'd make liner notes and write everything out. And that was stuff that like interested me, that he was a collector, but he was very particular and OCD about it. That's kind of where it started. So then I went into Next Generation, and Next Generation was what I was watching live. And then the figurines came out in 1992, the Playmates figurines, and that was it. I had to get that whole set. I got the bridge, I got the transporter. And I mean, I played those figurines, but like I said, I was very particular, even at a young age. I had to do my figurines a certain way. Like, first season Worf couldn't be with third season Picard.
Oh
and,
my God.
it's just, that's how I am.
Out of the box, did you say you played with them?
I did, because I was young at the time. I did play with them. Now I have them in the box, but I did at the time. That was.
Wait, are these the same ones that you had when you were a kid?
No, I've replaced. I've replaced. I still have my original ones. I had passed them on to my son, but they're actually down in my room still. So, but yeah, that's really where it started for me, was those Playmates figurines, being able to, have those bridge scenes play out in my room when I was young. That was it. That's really where it started.
So, I listened to one of your shows about we were talking about this a little earlier, and you started talking about the figurines, and those Playmate ones were they were toys. They came out for kids, but that's all that we had. So people were buying them and they were collecting them like they were, collectibles. Now we have these new ones that are being made by the company that you had on your show and you interviewed. And I went on their website. These things are incredible.
Oh my word! They look like the real deal, and it's it's crazy. It's crazy what they look like. Absolutely crazy.
They're called 1/6s, and they're museum replicas, right?
Yeah. So the 1/6 stands for the ratio.
The size. Okay.
The size compared to like an actual life-size person.
So it's like
it's
a
1/6.
foot, so it's like 12 inches probably high.
Yeah, it's 1/6 of, the size. So like if you ever see something like a die-cast car or any sort of collectible, it's always a ratio of what it is to what it actually is.
Okay, so 101 collectors, there's figurines that are toys, and then there were figurines that are like museum replicas, so don't be fooled.
So, but what's interesting though is anything out there can be a collectible.
Well, that's what I was going to ask you. Like, what do you say to somebody who's like, I'm interested in collecting stuff, but I'm not really into ships, or I like a lot of people. I'm not into the same type of stuff that a lot of collectors see. Like, I don't care about dolls. Don't call it a doll. It's an action figure.
Well, but it's whatever you like, whatever you want, and whatever is an expression of your fandom. That's collecting. I mean, there are people that collect movies, VHS tapes, right? And there are people that collect musical instruments. It's whatever is your passion, or how you express it. I used to collect when I was young. I remember we had these gold coins that we used to get at Sunoco gas station, and they had like the different presidents on there.
Oh my God. Yeah.
And I
remember those.
I remember collecting
all the presidents.
You had to get all the presidents. And it's a really funny story. When I was in fourth grade, I had this teacher, and she used to have these state stickers. So it was all 50 states.
Yep.
So like when you got 100 on your test, she would put one of the state stickers on there. And I remember the kids in the class being like, hey, you got Wisconsin? You got a double of Wisconsin? Okay. I'll trade you in Iowa for Wisconsin, like that. But because I collected them, it just, for some reason, anything that I acquired, I always would turn it into, I got to complete this. I got to collect this, and some things aren't worth money, but they're worth, they're worth something to you, for sure,
So I'm that person that collected the Red Rose tea figurines that came in the tea box. So I have like all of like Noah's Ark and all the animals. They were like these little figurines that were made out of, I forget what it was. I don't know. They were just cute, but I have them all over. So, okay, don't judge. Yeah. That's my thing. Okay, so the thing I'm collecting now, Jamie, I'm into this because I'm old school. And I'm a baseball card person. That was the thing that you collected back when
wait until you see my collection of baseball card stuff.
Oh, we got to go into this man's vault. Well, the thing I'm collecting are cards. So I have my Star Trek cards, and I have the first season of Discovery.
Okay.
So I'm looking for the second season. I don't have that yet. And I have TOS cards. So here I am. I'm feeling this kind of completist thing going on here where I want all the cards. Now, how do you, I know, how do I know? Is there a place that you can go to like get information about certain things and like say, how do I know I have all the cards?
Okay. So depending on where you buy from, so are you buying Rittenhouse sets? Or are you buying tops? Where are you?
I just got the stuff from the guy that told me it was.
All right. I'm going to give you a one-stop shop for most trading cards, customizable card game cards, toys, models. There's a website called Wixibon.com.
Ooh, we got to put this in the notes, people.
Wixibon.com. So it's Wixiban. And, he does a couple different genres, like he does Battlestar Galactica, he does like Star Wars, but anything you can think of for collectibles, like, toys, figurines, ships from Eagle Moss, the Rittenhouse cards, the Skybox cards, and then the Decipher, like the customizable card games, like the games you like play, they're all listed on this site. He does and you can literally go on to the one that you're looking to collect, and he'll have it all listed out. He'll have pictures of them, what the numbers are. So, I mean, a big thing, is getting a checklist, checklists are a big thing. And, back when I was young, we didn't have the internet, and we didn't have things.
No, you just,
all these resources that we have. So, you had to wait to get a checklist in a pack of, one of the packs.
What is a checklist? Break this down for those of us who don't know.
So for cards, a checklist is basically the card where its sole purpose is to tell you every card in the set.
Okay.
If you're buying like a set of baseball cards, the baseball cards might be numbered, 1 to 700.
Right.
And, so you might have like 3 or 4 checklists that'll list off, okay, number 1 is Alex Rodriguez. Number 2 is Derek Jeter, whatever, it'll have all the cards listed. So back then, that's the only way you really knew, how to find those cards, which ones you were missing. Back in the day, that's how you used to have to do it.
Like some serious, card buying coming on here. Now that I know that there's a checklist.
Oh yeah, but go to Wixabon because that, it has everything, and it will have variations on the cards and alternate styles and autographs, everything. It's amazing what they do on that website. It's like a Wikipedia for Star Trek collecting.
So it sounds awesome. I want to go back a little bit to your collecting history, and so you started off with action figures.
Yep.
What did you get into next? And did you stay in a Star Trek lane for a while, or did your collecting then expand to other places?
So my collecting young was the figurines and then baseball cards. I went baseball cards and football cards, basketball cards, and that was what I wanted to do. My parents got divorced when I was 12, and when I used to go with my father once a week, I'd go to the card shop near my house. And, our routine would be, I would buy, whatever, 10, 11, I'd use my allowance and get whatever set I was putting together. And then that card shop, he would actually have the singles that I was missing. Ooh. And he would literally, like, I'd go through, I say, okay, I'm missing number 1, I'm missing number 17. And I would buy the individual singles that I was missing to complete my sets. But I went through a period where I was putting together basketball sets. I had every Flair set from the Michael Jordan rookie year till, into the 90s.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. So I have, all those Flair sets, Flair Ultra, I have Shaq's rookie and Kobe Bryant's rookie and Jordan's rookie, Scottie Pippen's rookie, Ewing, all those guys. I would collect the sets every year. So same thing with football, baseball. But that's really where it was. And as I got a little older, I kind of got away from Star Trek as I was like a teenager. I got away from Star Trek, from collecting. I was working a lot. And then when I got out of high school, I started to kind of collect cards again, but like really high end cards. I really started getting into the cards that had either autographs on them or memorabilia pieces. Cause that stuff started to appeal to me, like the bats. I got a Ty Cobb bat one time where it was a piece of his bat inside the card. Stuff like that became cool to me. And then, I kind of waned a little bit in that. And then what reinvigorated it for me was my son. I had my son. My son was born. I started taking him to Star Trek conventions. And then all of a sudden, this concept of collecting and then maybe passing it on to him became important to me, so that's where the Star Trek autographs started happening, because it was me and him going to conventions. The photo ops started happening. That's where it branched off from there.
I got a question about the photos.
Yep.
I have quite a few. I've been on the cruise, I've been on the conventions, and we pay a bit of money to get those photos and those autographs. So what's the best way to preserve or to take care of the photos, and how do you show them? How do you keep them we used to have those old books with the black pages before and you glue them in, but we don't do that anymore.
So, depending on how you want to display it, I have most of my stuff in frames, but some things you really want to keep in mind when displaying is you want to make sure that the glass or the protector that you're using has UV protection. because what can happen, and I'll use the example of a baseball. Have you ever seen an autographed baseball and it's nice and white and clean and crisp? And then have you ever seen a baseball that's like brown?
Yeah.
Right? What's causing that is the UV rays from the sun or lights going on that product is what causes that to do that. So if you're going to display like a baseball or even a picture, you want to make sure that outer glass or that outer plastic or that outer protection has that UV sun protection to preserve that item.
But don't go cheap on the glass when you're putting this.
Yeah, don't go cheap on the glass or the protector, because what'll happen is if you have too much light or too much sunlight, the autograph can start to fade. And then if you have moisture in the room too, you'll get that effect of like the picture sticking to the glass, causing the humidity and the condensation. So just, if you're in a room like a downstairs type basement and you want to display things, make sure you got a humidifier, make sure you control that humidity that's in that room for sure. Because those are things that can damage your collection, for sure.
Yeah, I think I have mine in an archive box and in a plastic sleeve, but I want to bring them out, so that I can see them more often. Because sometimes I go in that box and I'm sort of like, wow, I forgot I even had this. And all right. So I'm going to think about framing them. I need a Star Trek wall like Jamie has. I know you guys can't see this, but Jamie's wall is amazing over here, and I'm only seeing part of it.
Yeah. So, another cool thing too, and once again, this plays into my completist thing. Even with the autographs and the pictures, I'm very OCD on how it's displayed. And you're going to see, I drive literally, and I'm not kidding, I will spend sleepless nights with graphing paper, mapping out how every time I go to a convention, I get 4 or 5 more autographs. I'm like, okay, how am I going to fit these on the wall? I literally have to map it out, because I can't have an Enterprise crew member on the same side as a Deep Space Nine guy. It's like... That's
called curating. There's nothing wrong with this, Jamie. I'm a fine arts major.
I would drive you crazy. I would drive, because I'm like, I want it all up there everywhere, and I don't care, this color looks good with this color, and we should shade it in over here, and I want this on the diagonal, and I have no care for the form or whatever. Well,
that's a different method of
it's completely the opposite for me. It's literally, and even my photo ops, it's so funny, because the first photo op I ever got was William Shatner with my son, and I had told myself I wasn't going to do photo ops. And then I got my William Shatner one. And I said, all right, well, maybe I can get all the captains. So that's how it works with me, is that becomes now my mission to, I got to get every captain now. And then, then I get Patrick Stewart, and I'm like, okay, well, I got to get all the next generation people, and one of the cool things, and, if we have time, I'll tell you a story later on, but, I'm sure many people have heard it, but I have a great story about Patrick Stewart and, how great he was to me and my son. It's a long story, but it's a good one. But, on my autograph from Patrick Stewart, he signed it to Jamie and Blake, to me and my son. So that turned into, okay, every photo op has to say to Jamie and Blake.
Okay.
That's my OCD. It's like, okay, it's got to be that.
Down that slippery slope. Okay.
It gets dicey. It gets dicey for me.
But that's cool though, because now you have a method of what you want. And, when you do put them all together, it really looks great. I can imagine that they really, and it's going to be really sentimental for him. Yeah. Looking at all those that he went and took with you. But I have another question.
Okay.
We were talking about how much you paid for these pictures and, all this stuff. So what kind of things really appreciate in value? I'm talking, what are you going to make money on in here? If you're going to buy some stuff, what would be the stuff that you could probably make some cash on this in about 5 years?
Well, obviously there are big things you got to look at, and it depends on what genre too. It depends on if it's cards or rarity is a big deal.
Mm-hmm.
All right. So rarity, condition, some collectors are big on condition. And it's like anything else. The value of an item is what somebody is willing to pay for it.
Right.
So that's where, sometimes places like eBay can dictate what the market is. But I'll give you an example. The Star Trek Picard set, the first series, which I'm sure you guys heard us talk about quite a bit, was coming out. And, I wanted to get the set. Obviously, I'm a completist. I wanted to get every autograph and get every card and all that stuff. So something that I saw very early on was the rarity of the set. And what I mean by that is when you get autograph cards, they sometimes will break them down into different rarity levels. So they have what's called scarce, which means there's only 100 or less of those cards in existence.
Okay.
Then the next level is, they call it extremely limited, which is usually like 1 to 200 in existence. Then you got very limited, and then, usually if it's not one of those 4 categories, it's like 500 or more. So I really saw early on, once I got the checklist, when I knew the set was coming out, there was a ton of scarce cards in this set. And, when me and Mike were talking about getting a set, I knew that set was going to ultimately be very valuable because it was coming out post-COVID, and the scarcity of it was very, very, a lot of rare cards, 100 or less Patrick Stewarts, things like that. So when I see something like that and I kind of project in my head, this is going to be a valuable item, I go all in before the market gets set. So, I bought a couple cases of those cards. And then when the cards first came out, I was very aggressive in purchasing.
Okay.
Because I knew that the market was going to go up on them. Mm-hmm. And then what ended up happening when those cards started disappearing, because they were so rare, if you look at the book value, they're a lot higher now. So if you're trying to still get those cards now, you're going to pay more of a premium. But then I'll see other sets coming out where I'll say like Discovery Season 2 came out and there was not as much rarity. And I would say, well, I'm going to wait a little while before I start getting some of those for the market to come down. Mm-hmm. So sometimes it's a matter of just knowing, how certain things are going to be. But if you're collecting cards, like baseball cards, basketball cards, they are big on condition. Big on condition. The true collectors, the big cards, the rookies, it's all condition based. And a lot of it too is whether or not it's graded or not. Are you girls familiar with grading?
Yeah.
At all?
A little bit. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So grading is where you take an item, whether it's an autograph or a card or a comic book, and you send it off to an authentication, company. Ooh. Like Beckett or, BSG or, some of these grading companies, and they actually grade it and they put a value on that of, usually they rate it from 1 to 10. They'll rate the corners. They'll rate the quality. Does it have any paper loss, whether it's authentic or not? And those type of things can really increase the value, if you got like a really well sought after rookie or a very rare autograph and you get it graded and it comes back with a high grade, that can exponentially increase the value of something.
Okay. So
exponentially,
we mentioned comic books. And so this is my thing, comic books. And I think Yvette, who is at New York Comic Con today. Hey, Yvette. Hey, JD. She's another big comic book reader and collector. And so like you said earlier at the top of the show, my comic book collection comes from an older brother. So I got all of his comic books when he got to be like, high school. He didn't want them anymore. Yep. I got them all. And so now I have an archive box. Unfortunately, my mother decided I didn't need all these comic books and threw away half of them. And I'm like, oh my God, there goes my retirement fund. But I have a box of comics. And so if I know they're worth a lot of money. they're worth money, because I always see them when I go to shows, and I'm like, I have this one, and the guy's selling it for like $200-300, and I'm freaking out. So how would you said I should send these to an authenticator, or can I authenticate them myself, or get a rough ballpark idea of how much all of them are worth? How do I look them up?
It depends on what you're trying to do. Like if you're looking to sell them, and you like, I only say go the authentication route if you got real big ones, like big. And when I say big ones, like generally in the comic book field, you're looking for like first issues of things. So Spider-Man 1, X-Man 1, Superman 1.
Single digit numbers.
Yeah. So if you're in the single digits, those are the big ones. And you know, what can be a good kind of reference point is look on eBay.
Look on eBay.
Look and see,
okay.
Look and see what they're selling for. If you're seeing stuff that gets listed for one day and it's selling like right away, then you know you got something, and that's where you start.
Place to go. eBay is my friend. I'm not gonna. Okay, I can go there. And
you go there and you look and you put your whatever item you have,
name and number.
Yeah, put it in the description and see how much they're going for. Mm-hmm. And then you kind of filter it out and see what ones have sold for, because people will put stuff online and they'll try to set the market themselves. Like they'll put out a crazy number, and I've done it too. I've done it where you have something that is worth a lot of money, and there's not a lot of them out there. So now it's a matter of, I'm going to put it out there and I'm going to see if somebody's willing to pay more than it's worth, Okay. So you want to be careful of that. That's why I'm saying, see what stuff is selling, what it actually sells for.
What it's selling for. Okay.
Yeah, well, what I'm saying, what it sold for necessarily. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Not what somebody's asking for.
Yeah. Because they might be two very different things,
Yeah. Yeah. All right. So I'm going to do that. So I have so there's my card questions. You answered that. I'm going to go to this place and get my checklist. So now you told me about my comic books. I'm going to eBay. I'm going to go check out all my comic books, man. I'm telling you, but this is going to be good. So the next thing I have like a quasi collection, I have like the little pocket books that were written like back in the day.
Oh yeah.
So I feel, okay, Jamie, stay with me on this.
I'm staying.
More now because they're not making them anymore? Is that making it a finite collection? Does that make it more important and cool, and they're really going to be worth money now, even though I may have like written in them and ripped off the covers on a couple of them?
So that's... my God. Did you not take I was a bookseller for 10 years. Like, I cannot hear somebody talk about how they ripped off a cover on a book.
Yeah, so
I ripped it off on purpose, but...
So those are big for condition. If you're looking to sell some of those things, condition is everything.
Okay.
So the ones that are written on, unless it's something that's very rare or, and I use this example, the golden example, and this is a card, but Mickey Mantle's 1952 Topps rookie card.
Well, even I knew about that. Okay, go ahead.
So it doesn't matter what's happened to that card, whether it's bent in half.
Wow.
It is the holy grail of cards. It is. And I have one of them. And, so condition matters, whether you're going to get $1 million or not for it. But if you got one, you got one. And people are willing to buy it no matter what it looks like. Mm-hmm. But there are other things like books, especially not the ones that aren't as rare, that people are really going to be particular about the condition.
Sure.
And any sort of, the second you write on something or you cut something, it really can change the value. And, so like what's happened in the past with cards is people will try to, because, card collectors are very particular about the corners of cards. Mm-hmm. So what people have done in the past is they would actually cut the card to make the corners sharper.
Oh.
Right. And so that's what you call modifying something. And collectors really don't like any sort of modification, the hardcore ones. And if you actually send one off to an authentication, they actually measure it, they weigh it, and they'll actually specifically say this one's been cut, and it really will decrease the value of something. So the second you start writing on something, or you take a cover off, or you rip a page, or you stick it to something, you can really decrease the value, obviously.
Oh, there go my pocketbooks. Well, I don't know.
Those pocketbooks were out as soon as you said ripped, torn off covers, girl.
Oh my God. But I have a bunch of them. I had so many of them. People gave me, shopping bags full of pocketbooks that they didn't want anymore. And they decided to give them to me. So
those are mass market things too. Like they're literally pulp, made from pulp. At the bookstores that we worked at, like you couldn't even return mass markets. You would rip off the covers of the mass market and return the covers to get the credit for the ones that weren't sold, and the rest would just be tossed in the trash because it's not even worth that much because it's pulp. It's literally pulped paper, and it was so cheap. They're just like, we don't want it back. Don't waste the money in sending it. Don't waste the postage to send it.
Yeah.
Well, I'm still going to get all of my pocketbooks. I'm just going to collect them all.
And like I said, it's like anything else. Your item is worth whatever somebody is willing to pay for it. Yeah. I will say that till I'm blue in the face. If you can find that one person out there that really wants that,
who wants a bunch of messed up pocketbooks, okay.
Yeah. I bought an item not too long ago that it wasn't in the greatest condition, but I needed it from my set. I'm a big Rush fan, the band Rush, and I was collecting all their tour books for every one of their tours. So their rarest one is their first tour book they ever released from their 1977 British tour of the 2112 album. It's very, very rare. You can't find it, and the last time it had come on eBay, I got, cold feet a little bit, because sometimes I have my max of where I'm going to go to try to get this item. And, I should have been more aggressive, and I didn't get it. And so it took months for me to see it again. And when I saw it again and it was a buy it now, I just said, I'm not going to wait, because I'm not going to lose out on somebody else getting this. And I just said, I'm getting it. That's it.
A motivated buyer.
Yeah, I was motivated, and I felt the price was good, and I felt like if it had stayed on there, because I'd been watching these for years. I had every single one other than this one tour book that I've been putting together for years, and I know what they go for, and I said, this is a good price. I don't care that it's a little bent.
You feel that to me? He's still feeling this.
Yep. I know, right? I know. I'm seeing it. I'm feeling it.
Yep. Sometimes that's what you do when you want it.
So what's the weirdest thing you've ever seen anybody collect? Like, you just like, what? I mean, you just can't even figure out why this would be sentimental.
Oh, I've definitely seen some crazy ones. You kind of put me on the spot. I'm trying to think. We interviewed John Krikorian, and I'm trying to remember. He had a really bizarre thing that he collected outside of Star Trek stuff, but I can't remember. I can't remember what it was. Oh man,
spoons.
Yeah, I've seen people collect spoons. I've seen people go the route of, they like a particular licensee and they'll collect anything from that licensee. Like, I've seen people who are big Kiss fans, and they'll collect everything that's got the Kiss logo on there, Kiss condoms and Kiss diapers and, Kiss toilet paper. I mean, I'm serious. Like, if it's got a Kiss logo on there, and there are people that are Star Trek, like if it says Star Trek on there, it's a pizza cutter. We were doing our show the other day, and we were talking about, there's a Discovery pizza cutter and an Enterprise D pizza cutter, and that's not something I would get, but I have a Next Generation Pez dispenser set. I mean,
I just saw today on a post on Facebook that somebody on Etsy is selling a a Deep Space Nine sort of space station kitty tree.
Yep.
It's a cat tree that looks like a space station. It's so
oh my
dope.
word.
I was like, I need to get a cat again. So that I can buy the space station kitty tree.
but you know, this is what's so fun about collecting, and what's so fun about our show is like the stories behind what people collect. And I'll give you, for instance, a good friend of ours, Alex Perry, who I'm sure you're familiar with. Mm-hmm. You know, he's big into like screen used items, like screen used props. But one of the coolest things that he collected that I just thought was so incredible was, you guys remember the Next Generation episode Disaster?
Yeah.
The one where Troy takes command, where Picard's in the turbo lift with the kids. So I don't know if you remember the sequence, but it was Dr. Crusher and Geordi in one of the cargo bays, one of the shuttle bays, right? And they had these like toxic yellow containers that they had to move from one side to the other side. And then they had this fire and they couldn't put the fire out. So they had to figure out a way to put this fire out and get rid of these toxic containers. So the actual special effects shot, so they had the containers, they were full side, but to do the actual special effects, they had these little small containers. And they basically like tipped the camera up and like let the containers fall down on strings. So Alex Perry actually has 2 of those containers that were used to film that scene.
Oh, wow.
That's and it's cool. Like, you know,
that's so cool.
Yeah. Hearing him tell the story about the containers and like how he got them. And that's the stuff that's like, oh, it's so much fun hearing people talk about like putting their collections together. Yeah. It's the quest. To me, that's what drives me to do it. Because once you get the item, yeah, it's nice to display, but for me, it's all about the pursuit of it. Mm-hmm. How do I get it? How do I complete this? How do I get it for the cheapest possible price? How do I negotiate? You know, where do I go to get it? Like, there's always, to me, that's what drives me to do it, is the actual pursuit of it, not actually having it.
Like Mr. Spock said, I don't know why, but having is not always as wonderful as wanting.
Yep.
And I know people are wondering, like, what does like this collecting have to do with, you know, SyFy Sistas? Like, why is SyFy Sistas doing a show like this? And I'm here to say that if you've ever watched Antiques Roadshow, and you have seen the lack of brown skin on Antiques Roadshow, on what actually gets aired. Like, there's a reason why we're doing this, because Black people collect too. You know, we are there doing our thing and running markets and stuff too. But, you know, it pertains to us as well. You know? Yeah, you would never know that if the only thing you watch is Antiques Roadshow.
I actually, a good friend of mine actually collected Black history memorabilia. So like that was her focus of what she actually did. And I remember being so impressed. Like she had items that were owned by Harriet Tubman. And I mean, it was just really cool. Wow. But that's what I'm saying, is like a collection can take on whatever meaning it wants for the person, you know what I mean? And you know, she was very, very much into her history and her past and her family tree. So she was always looking to collect things within, you know, Black history. And that was what, you know, spoke to her heart, you know, and what drove her to collect. And I mean, she had stuff that was very, very expensive to say the least. You know, stuff from like Civil War area, before the Civil War. God. Yeah. I mean, like, and like I said, you find the right person that wants to buy that stuff, can get a pretty penny for sure.
So what about that? Like when you get to the point where you've really got an important collection, and not just important to you, but you've got a lot of really rare stuff in it. Do you insure it? Can it be insured?
Yeah, it absolutely can be insured. It's like insuring a diamond ring. It's like people put that on their home insurance policy. You absolutely can. You can do other sort of supplemental insurance, but yeah, that's very important to make sure that you take care of your stuff for sure, because things can happen like floods or hurricanes but that's the part that's tricky, because there may be monetary things that you could replace, but you ain't going to replace a photo op with Patrick Stewart if he's never doing a photo op again,
Right.
Or you're never going to replace something that maybe is a one of a kind item, because that's the tricky one to put a price tag on.
Right.
It's easy to put a price tag on something when there's 100 in existence or 250 in existence, but it's hard to put a price tag on something that there's only one of them out there in the world.
Right.
It's only as much as somebody is willing to pay for it,
Yeah, I heard you say that on your show. It's not worth anything if it's on your wall. It's only.
Yeah. Well, my wife always teases me because, she always sees my autographs and she'll always bust my chops and say, aren't those worth more if they don't actually put your name on there? And I'm like, yeah, they're worth more.
I did actually learn that from Antiques Roadshow.
They are, but my Star Trek pictures, they have they have sentimental value to me. Those were my experiences with my son going to the convention. That's like, those are my memories. And, those pictures are the visual representation of those memories, and
he's older in each one of the pictures. I mean,
yeah. I mean, you see a gradual, like when we saw Shatner, he was like 2 years old, and then Patrick Stewart, he was like 2.5. And then you got to you started seeing like Kate Mulgrew, he was like 3 and 4, and the Next Gen cast, he's 5, 6.
That's cool.
And then you get to you get to Anson Mount, and he's like 8, 9. So it was cool to see him, kind of grow and develop and become his own person, especially like you see him as a baby. And then I saw him like when he was 5, and we met all the Next Generation people. He had his Kirk, uniform on.
Okay.
And he had his toy phaser strapped to the side of his belt. Like I'll never forget that whole weekend. I kept trying to tell him, hey, let's take the photo op without the toy phaser, because I'm thinking about how the picture's going to look. And he would not take that phaser off. I mean, just was, I have tons of pictures of him firing at people, and every picture he's got it strapped to his side. But then you look at the years after, and he's in like regular clothes because he got past wearing the uniforms. Now he was
on one side of the room, and with phaser, and then you without phaser.
Yep. So, but to your point, you just see the development and the evolution, and those are good memories for me.
Yeah. So tell me, you mentioned Anson Mount, and so we just had Star Trek Day last month, and that was terrific. And we've got all these new shows coming out. What can you tell us by looking in your collector crystal ball and say, do you know anything about what cool things are going to come out for any of these new shows that maybe we should get a jump on now because they're going to be rare?
Well, it's hard because, a lot of times, timing is everything, and they're not going to release things really before. It's very rare, especially like a new show like Strange New Worlds, that you're going to see anything prior to it actually coming out. You're going to
wait and see if the show's a hit.
Yeah. Well, they'll have stuff lined up, but it's just a matter of timing. Mm-hmm. They're not going to, there's the old adage of like, when you think of like Star Wars, Star Wars, when it first came out, they couldn't make the toys fast enough because of the demand, once the movie came out. So they're not going to put something out until there's a demand for it, and the reason I say that is you're not going to release figurines of characters you know nothing about or can be invested in until you've actually seen the show and, oh, I really like this character. I want a figurine of this character.
Gotcha.
One's going to drive the other. you know, especially in like the card industry. And usually with CBS too, is they're not going to let stuff get out until they've approved it, and they see it's quite a process. I mean, you talk to licensees like Fansets, Rittenhouse, which those are people that we've talked to over the, I mean, it's quite a process to get something approved, you know. So just going back to those Exo-6, you know, figurines, you know, they have to make a mold of that item. They have to send it off to CBS to get approved. They send it back. Okay, now you can do it. Now they got to send it off to the actor.
Oh, wow.
And the actor has to approve it. You know?
I had no idea.
Oh, yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
And that goes, you got to go on their website and look at these things because it is amazing. And I know Patrick Stewart was like, oh, yeah, print it up, do it.
Yeah.
And which company is this again?
Which one were you talking?
Which licensee was that? Were you talking about?
Are you talking about Exo-6?
Oh, okay.
Exo-6. That's the one I'm talking about.
Okay.
But I'm going to give you an example, and I'm going to say this example. Hopefully, I don't get in trouble. But it's a Fansets example.
But we need to talk about Fansets.
Yeah. So our good friends at Fansets, they were doing a Catherine Janeway pen, and I mean, literally, they went to because their manufacturers are out of the country, so they went to the manufacturers back and forth. They created a mold. Then they have to create a sample. You know, they got their sample back. They sent it off to CBS. It went to CBS. Everything got approved and all that stuff. And then it came back, and then it went off to Kate Mulgrew. Now, if you remember in Voyager, the first season, she used to have the bun.
I knew right where we were going.
Right. She used to have the bun on her head. Okay. And then obviously as the show evolved, she started cutting her hair. And, you know, she initially, Kate Mulgrew hated the bun hairstyle when she was on the show. She hated it. It used to give her headaches, especially the long work days. So she complained and got them to allow her to wear her hair.
Yeah, the Dax do for a moment.
Yeah. Yeah, because it was tight. It was so tight. They you know, they always have this concept of it has to be tight because it's in space. So anyways, their first micro crew was her in the bun. So what do you think happened?
Oh, that
Kate gets it, says, nope, no bun on there. Sent it back. They had to start the whole process over again.
I love Kate.
Wow.
But that's what happens. You know,
wow.
And you know, another guy who I love to death, one of the nicest guys, Scott Bakula.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
great guy, but he's been known to be very tough on approving stuff. You know, if you ever see him in like video games or on cards or like, I don't know if you girls ever played like Star Trek Timelines on your phones or whatever, but there would be very few Archer characters on there because it used to take him so long. He'd keep kicking it back, say, oh, I don't like my hair in this one, or I look a little bald in this one, or you know, whatever it is.
Oh my God.
But there's such a process for these licensees, you know. And you think too, like even the cards, like Rittenhouse, I mean, you know, they got to get all these actors to agree to do these autographs too. You know what I mean? So that's a whole nother process. I mean, you know, he's been doing it for so long. It's easy for a guy like that to, once he gets Patrick Stewart can say, hey, you know, you guys can all do this. He's a good guy, you know, but you got to think about that, getting that approval and, you know, that whole sequence is different, you know?
Yeah. We know, you know, Kalia and over there at Science Division, and when they came up with that interactive Tribble, you know, she came and told us about what they had to go through to get that done.
Oh, yeah.
It was just like, I know she's been on your show too.
Yeah.
And Jay. And so, you know, wow, I can't even imagine. I mean, it gets to the point where you could just say, I give up, but.
Yeah. Well, that's where they were. They were right on the edge of giving up. And that's, you know, like I said, I mean, it's stuff like that happens, you know, where it can be very frustrating as a licensee to to try to get a product out. But I mean, you know, you look at those X06s and you can't imagine Kate Mulgrew looking at that and going, yeah, you need to fix, you know, this or that, but we don't know. Maybe those first had a bun on them.
Yeah.
And
you know, it's funny because another fan got those pins for all the different iterations that were on their chest, but that is something that I can just see a lot of people collecting. I mean, they have some fantastic pins. They really do.
Oh yeah.
The last group that came out, did they have the Tayshaun pin? Did they have a Lower Decks pin? Did that come out yet?
They have the set of the crew, the original 7.
Okay.
From season 1. So you have your
the Tayshaun
Mariner.
Pin, I'm there.
Tayshaun has not come out. Yeah, I'm sure it's going to come out because
and will be quickly gobbled up, I'm sure.
Yeah. Love that show.
That was the thing that just totally won me over with Lower Decks when they brought him in the Temerian. I was just a goner.
But I have a question about so if you have a person who has never listened to the Divine Treasury before,
okay,
what do you want to tell them about the show to entice them over? Because I'm encouraging you all, if you haven't listened to the show, to please listen, because it's so much fun and it's so informative. I learned so much from the show. It's so cool. And I really didn't think that I was going to be interested. You know, honestly, like I was like, because it's not my thing. Like, I don't really collect stuff. I mean, well, I kind of do, but my form of collecting for my fandom is, can I wear it? Yeah. You know, like, can I wear it or can I use it? Is it practical? You know, and like, can I use it in my daily life and still show off my love of my fandom? And that's pretty much it. Like, if it's something that I have to dust, if it's something that I need to take care of and make sure it doesn't get destroyed in some kind of way, I'm like, very few, you know, not so much for me. But what are people going to learn on Divine Treasury? Because you guys got me caring about stuff that I never thought that I would care about. So thank you for that.
If you can get past the first half of the show where me and Mike, you know, talk between the two of us aimlessly about the things that we've acquired or the things that are coming out, really listen for the stories from our guests. And like I said, it's something that, you know, when we were first talking about doing this show, you know, I initially said, I don't think this is sustainable. I don't think we can do this. And that was, you know, when we, you know, we had the discussions with Bill and Dan about doing it. And, you know, I thought it was a great concept, but I just said, it's not sustainable. But some of the people that we've met and some of the stories that we've done, you know, and then even, you know, check out some of the, we call it Collector's Corner, where we actually talk to like the licensees. Those can be a lot of fun too. You know, like Steve from Rittenhouse, if you're a card person, oh, that was so much fun. Like I had about 20 questions I want to ask him, and I asked about 3 because he just loves what he does. You know, he just loves his products. And like, you know, an example with him, like if you were to collect like Star Wars cards and you were to get the Star Wars autograph cards, they do a lot of like stickers where they'll send a bunch of stickers to the celebrity and they'll sign the stickers and then put the sticker on the card. He does his autographs right on the card. He sends the cards right to the people. And to me, that's a big difference. To me, as a collector, that's telling, like when I look at what Topps is putting out for a product, I look at it as like all they care about is money and all they care about is production. They're going to send a bunch of stickers and then they're going to me, it shows care that Steve is like, nope, I'm sending the card to them. This card was autographed, you know? So
that's a big difference to me.
Finding things out like that is super cool, you know? You know, talking to Dayton Ward, that was so much fun as well, you know?
That's a great show. Anybody that loves the books, listen to that show.
Yeah. And it's funny because, you know, the interview was good, But when you listen to the Collector's Corner of Dayton Ward, it was just so much better. When he really started talking about the process of what it takes to do a novel and the collaboration, and how he went from basically being a computer programmer who did this part-time to now this is his full-time job. I mean, it's just, you learn things about people, and you learn about what motivates people. And like I said, it was something I never thought I was going to experience. I thought it was, it's going to be hard to sustain a show like this, but just, and some of the friends and meeting, wonderful people like you guys is just, it's such a good experience for sure. So listen to the second half. If you can't get through the first half of just me and Mike, rambling on, just fast forward to like the second half. Like Jake Black's interview was wonderful too. Yeah, that's another wonderful one to check out. But what's become the favorite part of my show though is the awards section. When we talk about the awards, like, we do this awards section at the end. And like I said, if you're going to listen to anything, listen to the ending, because we talk about, basically what item is, that a person wants. We talk about the item that's the most valuable, but then there's that third one, and we call it the Resican Flute Award. It's what item has the most sentimental value to you. And you'd be amazed what people will say when they get to that award section.
I have this as a question. I have it here as a question. What is yours?
What was my Resican Flute?
What's the piece that, my God, if the flood is coming, that's the first thing you're going to grab?
It's my Patrick Stewart photo op with my son.
I had a feeling.
Tell us that story.
So, oh boy, I've told the story so many times, but
it's not to us.
Yes, right.
All right. So these poor people that are going to, hear this for the 10th time, but basically, I'm a big Next Generation fan. I love the original series, but Next Generation, that's my show. That's what I grew up on. I love the original series movie, but I love Patrick Stewart, and I've always had a fondness for him and an admiration for him. But when I first started collecting my pictures, my autograph pictures, I really wanted to get the entire Next Generation cast on a large black and white, kind of like a casual photo of the 7 of them. So it was the 25th anniversary, and they were all coming to Boston, which is, I'm not too far from Boston. I live in Rhode Island. They were all coming there for the anniversary. And so I figured, I'll get all 7 of them. This is going to be great. And, my son was 2 at the time. So I ended up taking them. We had met most of the people, but at the last minute, Patrick Stewart backed out, Jonathan Frakes backed out. So I said, well, I'll get everybody else. But I said, I got to figure out how I'm going to get Patrick Stewart. So coincidentally, Patrick Stewart at the time was doing 2 plays in New York. He was doing Waiting for Godot and No Man's Land. So he had decided that the only convention he was going to do that year was the New York Wizard World convention in New York City. So, me being the, I would think, forward-thinking person that I am, I think it's going to be a great idea to take my 2.5-year-old son, get him up early in the morning on a Saturday, and drive him to a convention in New York. What could possibly go wrong? Right?
That's brilliant, Dad.
So I buy the Patrick Stewart VIP package, where it's got a photo op, an autograph, you get a seat like right in the front for his panel, all this other stuff. So we go. Now, by this point, I had the William Shatner picture with my son. So that was like, that concept of doing the picture with my son was really cool. But that William Shatner picture, William Shatner was sitting in a chair, which is what he does most of the time now. And my son was able to kind of stand up in front of him, and I was able to kind of crouch over around him. So it made the picture really easy to do. So we go to the convention. We get there, 9 a.m. We go meet Ray Park from Star Wars. Awesome. We meet Will Wheaton. We go meet Patrick Stewart right in the beginning. Super nice, super cool. So I get my 8x10 of Patrick Stewart, and I get my black and white cast photo. I get it. So he signs both of those. Super cool, super easy to talk to. So now comes like noontime and time for the photo op. So everything was going great. We're in line for the photo op. And my son starts having a meltdown in the photo op line. So you will never see a more desperate father than you saw on this Saturday afternoon, where I was literally begging and pleading with my son. Like, I promised him anything this world had to offer. Dad will buy you any candy, any food, any toy. This is Dad's favorite captain. Please.
The 2.5-year-old was like,
And he was like, having nothing to do with it. I mean, I was like, we can leave as soon as this is done. And he was, crying, screaming. Like, it was bad. Like epic meltdown. Worst meltdown I've ever experienced with them. So I'm kind of panicking a little bit because I'm like, how's this going to work? When I go in to do this photo op, right? So we come around the corner, and remember how I had said about William Shatner's being where he was sitting in a chair. I come around the corner and I see the photographers sitting in a director's chair, and he's got this like full stand where the camera is sitting on this stand. It's not moving. And I'm like, oh, this isn't good. So now I turn and I see Patrick Stewart standing up. And now I'm really getting nervous because I'm like, how are we going to do this? My son is screaming at the top of his lungs. Patrick Stewart is standing. How are they going to do this picture? So I get to be almost my turn. And I get to the little assistants and I say, hey, so how are we doing this picture? And they're like, we're doing one camera angle. That's it. He's standing up. You're going to have to pick your son up. That's what we're doing. So I'm like, oh boy. So I'm like praying to any God that I believe in. And we go up and I go to pick my son up and he snaps, like just whatever he was doing before was like times 10. Screaming, hands going all over the place, kicking, all this other stuff. And my heart, like when I tell you, like sunk, like I thought this was like the worst day of my life. Like I was literally like getting ready to break down and cry. So the assistants who are there are getting very upset with me. And they're literally like, you need to get your son under control or we're going to have to ask you to leave or get out of the line. So all of a sudden, I hear this voice, and it's Patrick Stewart. And he yells, stop everything. So my first thought, this is going to be a story for the ages because Patrick Stewart is going to throw me out of his photo op.
I know, right?
Right? So he goes, stop everything. And he points at the cameraman and he goes, I want you to take that camera off the stand. We're going to change the whole camera angle. And everybody just stops and kind of freezes in their tracks. And they're like, what did he just say? And they're like, they start arguing and all this other stuff. And finally, somebody who was, I don't know where I was. I was like, not even on the planet at that point. I'm like in a corner, curled up somewhere crying because I'm not going to get a picture with my favorite captain. So somebody there said, take the camera off the stand. If Patrick Stewart tells you to take the camera off the stand, you take the camera off the stand. So they start like going around. Like I said, I'm curled up in a corner, sucking my thumb, whatever I'm doing. And Patrick Stewart gets down on his knees and starts talking to my son. Oh. And literally just, and I'm not exaggerating, had like a 5-minute conversation with my son. My son's crying. He's all red. His cheeks are like bright red, all disheveled. And Patrick Stewart just gets down on his knees and just starts talking to him. And he actually introduces himself as Captain Picard. Wow. And he goes, hey, what's your name? I'm Captain Picard. so nice to meet you. Do you watch the show? And my son's just like, yeah. So he just has this conversation, and my son started to calm down. And he literally said to my son, after like 5 minutes of talking to him, he goes, Blake, what would make me the most happiest person in the world? What would make my day? My son's like, what? If you took a picture with me today, that would mean the world to me. If you took a picture with me, he said, do you think you can do that? And my son was like, yeah, I think I can do that. He goes, all right, so this is what we're going to do. I'm going to get down on my knees. You're going to stand up. Your dad's going to get down on his knees, and we're all going to take a picture together. Well, how does that sound? And my son said, okay. And literally it was like that perfect moment where my son smiled. I mean, you can see in the picture, he's a little disheveled, like he's got his shirt like a little crumpled up because, I didn't have time to fix it because I was just so like dumbfounded about what was going on. But we took this great picture. And I'll never forget, I got the picture and I was so blown away by how well it came out that I said, I want to go back and I want him to autograph this. So about 3 hours later, after we had gotten the photo op, we went back over to his table. And as we were walking up to his table, he yelled to my son, and he remembered my son's name. And said, hey, Blake, remember me? We took a picture together. And and my son just lit up. And still to this day, he still tells that story. Like, because he's met everybody. He's met every cast member from every show, but he'll still talk about how, when he was having a bad day, how Patrick Stewart calmed him down and was forgiving or whatever it was. So we went up to Patrick Stewart, and, I said to him, I'd really like you to autograph this to Jamie. And he goes, I really don't want to autograph it to Jamie. And I said, well, now I'm kind of like, what do you mean? He goes, it would mean a lot to me if I did it to Jamie and Blake.
Oh my God.
So, and then my son was like, Dad, can we do that? Can he do it to Jamie and Blake? And I said, yeah, absolutely. So Patrick Stewart was the one that started that photo op tradition of to Jamie and Blake, Patrick Stewart,
That is a great story.
Yeah, that is a fantastic story. That is so cool. That's why I wanted you to tell it. Like, I've heard it before, but I mean, I love hearing it again. And that's, I think, is at the heart of what you guys bring out. That it lets me know, that behind every collectible, behind a lot of things, there's a story behind the collectibles. That a lot of these things really touch us in, significant ways. They're not just things to possess all the time, No,
absolutely. And like I said, to me, that picture represents what kind of person Patrick Stewart is. Sure. And I'll never forget that experience, and whatever happens, obviously at some point he's going to pass on and whatever, but I'm always going to have that memory and, that I cherish of meeting him, and I've met him several times now, because I actually have a cast photo op with him as well, of the whole Next Gen cast. And I've got other autographs and stuff of other times I've met him, but that one particular was so special. And even his panel, he was just, I've never seen somebody, at the end of a panel actually argue with the moderator. The moderator told him that time was up and it was time to get off the stage. And he actually said to the moderator, he goes, I'm not getting off this stage until every person that wants to ask me a question, asks me a question.
Oh, wow.
I've never seen somebody do that, and it was like 7:00 at night. I mean, he was done, probably tired, but
sure.
He was just, he's just a guy that truly is humble and appreciates the fans and appreciates what he has in life. And, it means that collectible means something to me, because of all these other elements,
It's so funny because he's such a class act that the last Emmy Awards that happened, Michaela Cole won the Emmy for I May Destroy You. I've been watching this thing all night, and I was so rooting for her to win this Emmy for writing. And when they called her name, it was Sir Patrick that was giving her the Emmy. And when she got up on the stage, Brit to Brit, she did this little curtsy to him, and he just gave her this thing. And I was like, oh my God, he is so cool. She was just like, Sir Patrick. I said, yes, girl, that is who he is. It was just a moment that I just loved. He's just all that. He really is. So
yeah, there's just so much
for telling
to him.
The story.
No, it's definitely, it's definitely something that's meant a lot to me over the years, and something I'll never forget for sure.
Yeah.
So, Sir Patrick, if you're listening,
and we know you,
and
are.
I know you are, we just love you.
We do. We love you guys at Divine Treasury. We love you guys. I mean,
we love you too.
I love our Trek Geeks family. It's so cool. When you were talking about, we just sit here and talk about this thing that we happen to love, and it leads us to all these other people and all these new experiences. And that's what's been so amazing about about the SyFy Sistas saying like, hey, we just want to talk about stuff from our point of view and our perspective, and let's have some fun. And then we meet all these people, and our lives are so enriched. And, we go down different pathways than we thought that we would ever go down. Because honestly, I could tell you right now, honey, I did not think that was going to be a show that would interest me, but it has, it has. And now I'm just waiting for you guys to do like a Geeks Antiques Roadshow.
Yeah.
I'm just waiting for you guys to take the reins and do it, because I'm all over that.
That would be great.
And we'll get some brown skin on that too, right?
That's right.
That's right.
Thank you.
All right. Well, thank you so much for joining us. I'm sorry Mike couldn't be here, and I'm sorry the rest of the sisters couldn't be here, but they're all doing cool things. I hope Mike is.
Oh yeah,
Yes.
no, he's doing cool things, and I could talk for hours about this stuff. I'm sure you can see that I get very emotional and passionate about this stuff, and it's a part of my fandom. It's how I express myself,
That's what it is. I mean, you hit on it a few times when you said that. We do a thing on our social media called Fandom Fridays, and we just ask people to show us what they're geeking about, and people just take a picture of stuff and show us their cool things, and people just love Star Trek, and they love collecting things about it, and especially if it has some sort of meaning or story behind it. And that's what I truly do love about listening to your show. It's like, I get a lot of good ideas, in fact, and I know where I'm going to get my checklist and da. But the stories are just amazing. So I really appreciate it, and I love it. It's a great show. So,
hey, Jamie, where can people reach you if they want to reach out to you guys?
Yep. So divine_treasury is our show handle, and so you can find us, on Twitter. Twitter is mostly where I hang out. I am JMROG84. Pretty much most of the things I talk about are positive things, positive things in my collecting, and I'm currently doing the USS Enterprise D build. So if you follow me on Twitter, you get to see all the steps to the Enterprise D as I put it together. So that's the follow.
Nice. Hear that, folks? Follow that.
All right. So,
and if you want to reach us, you can find us on the Twitter also at SyFy Sistas, or on Facebook at SyFy Sistas. And we also have the SyFy Sistas Mothership Group, and we have the SyFy Sistas Book Club. And on Instagram, we're SyFy.Sistas, and that's SYFYSISTAS. And before we leave, we can't do anything without shouting out the baddest engineer in the universe, and that's Dose the Anonymous. Dose.
You feeling better?
We love you, Dose. We hope you're feeling better. And if you need his services for either music or production services, you can reach him at dosetheanonymous1@gmail.com. That's DOSTHE, the number one. No, DOSTHEANONYMOUS, the number 1 at gmail.com. Oh, I can get it together.
It'll be in the notes.
It's in the notes because I can't spell. And Sabrina.
Yes.
Thank you so much for leading us down the collecting road.
See, I told you you're going to like it.
The conversation. It's funny because I'm like, oh, why didn't I talk about this? Or why, I get on these tangents and.
We'll save that for the next time.
Yeah.
Yeah.
For sure. All right. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to log in on my iPad so I can walk around the room. Okay.
Okay.
So we can do a little tour.
Hold on 1 second. The last thing is, thanks for listening, y'all. See you next week. We're out. Bye. Peace, love, and hair grease.